Welcome to Global Glimpses, your trusted source for breaking headlines, global insights, and sharp analysis from around the world. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. The Grand Hall in Beijing's Great Hall of the People was thick with tension, its marble pillars and gilded ceilings bearing silent witness to a moment of global significance. EU leaders Ursula von der Leyen and Antonio Costa sat across from Chinese President Xi Jinping, their faces composed but their eyes betraying the gravity of the moment. The July 2025 summit, commemorating 50 years of EU-China relations, was intended as a milestone. Yet, instead of celebration, the air was thick with the weight of unresolved disputes and mutual suspicion. The ornate setting could not disguise the reality. This was a high-stakes negotiation, not a festive anniversary. Smiles for the cameras masked deep suspicion. Every handshake was a calculation, every gesture carefully measured for its diplomatic impact. President Xi warned against politicizing economics, alluding to EU trade probes and hinting at the risks of confrontation. Meanwhile, European leaders pressed for fairness, transparency, and a level playing field, determined to address what they saw as persistent imbalances. Both sides insisted they didn't want to decouple, repeating the language of partnership. But beneath the surface, actions spoke louder. De-risking strategies and talk of strategic realignment revealed a growing sense of caution and competition. The summit became a stage for political theater. Channels of communication remained open, but the trust that once underpinned the relationship was visibly eroding, replaced by a wary pragmatism. Contentious issues loomed large: trade imbalances, China's ongoing support for Russia in the Ukraine conflict, and the growing list of unresolved disputes that threatened to overshadow any progress. Accusations of American influence on EU assertiveness added another layer of complexity, as both sides navigated the shifting dynamics of global power. No breakthroughs emerged from the marathon talks. Instead, the summit ended with a clear signal. The era of naive engagement and easy optimism was over, replaced by a new phase of guard rivalry and strategic calculation. The uneasy smiles captured in the final group photo told the story, a relationship now defined by mutual dependence, deepening distrust, and a rivalry whose consequences will ripple far beyond the negotiating table. The EU's policy toward China, partner, competitor, systemic rival, has shifted sharply since 2019. This multifaceted approach aimed to balance economic cooperation with strategic caution. By 2024, rivalry and competition had overtaken partnership, driven by China's rise in key industries and heavy state support. The EU found itself increasingly wary of China's growing influence and technological advancements. The EU's new mantra, de-risking, not decoupling, reducing critical dependencies in tech, raw materials, and green energy. This strategy aims to safeguard European interests without completely severing ties. The economic security strategy marked a defensive turn, ending an era of uncritical engagement. It reflects a broader shift towards protecting the EU's economic sovereignty. Geopolitics accelerated the shift. China's support for Russia in Ukraine shattered illusions of neutrality. This alignment has deepened the EU's mistrust and reshaped its foreign policy. Security concerns now rival economic ones, with the relationship defined by values and strategic interests. The EU is increasingly focused on safeguarding its security and democratic values. The EU is launching trade probes and scrutinizing Chinese investments, while China sees this as protectionism. These measures are part of a broader effort to ensure fair competition and protect critical industries. The language of partnership rings hollow. The real contest is over technology, influence, and global rules. Both sides are vying for leadership in the next wave of technological innovation. The EU-China relationship in 2025 is a rivalry at its core, with cooperation increasingly rare. The future of this relationship will likely be defined by strategic competition and cautious engagement. The electric vehicle battle epitomizes EU-China competition. Chinese brands like BYD, boosted by state subsidies, flooded Europe with affordable tech-packed cars, threatening Europe's auto industry. Fearing a repeat of the solar panel debacle, the EU launched an anti-subsidy probe and imposed tariffs up to 35.3% on Chinese EVs in late 2024. The move exposed EU divisions. Germany, reliant on China, feared retaliation. France pushed for protection. The tariffs tested Europe's unity and resolve, as a geopolitical bloc. Beijing denounced the tariffs as protectionism, filed a WTO complaint, and prepared retaliation. The car war became a symbol of a deeper struggle, defending Europe's industry against China's state-led capitalism. The conflict set the stage for broader economic confrontation. It's not just about cars, it's about the future of global trade rules. The stakes for both sides have never been higher. China hit back swiftly against EU tariffs, targeting politically sensitive European exports. Pork was first. China launched an anti-dumping probe, then slapped duties up to 62.4% on EU pork, hitting Spain, the Netherlands, and Denmark. French brandy followed, with steep anti-dumping measures, clear retaliation against France's tariff push. Beijing's strategy targeted key sectors to fracture EU unity and pressure member states to soften their stance. Investigations into EU dairy and other goods kept European exporters on edge. The tit-for-tat extended to medical devices, as the EU restricted Chinese firms in response to China's own protectionism. Each move triggered a counter-move, escalating the trade conflict. China's targeted retaliation exploited Europe's internal divisions, turning economic diversity into vulnerability. The result: a messy, attritional struggle with no clear winner. The EU-China economic relationship is now defined by distrust and constant brinkmanship. The EU-China rivalry is fiercest in the digital realm. Europe, championing strict privacy laws, clashed with China's state-driven tech model. In 2025, the EU fined TikTok $530 million for data violations and cracked down on Shein and Temu under new digital rules. Cyber attacks linked to China, including a major breach in the Czech Republic, fueled European fears. The EU is pushing Chinese firms out of sensitive tech sectors, building a fortress Europe of data protection. Meanwhile, China's Great Firewall grows, deepening the digital divide. Trust is nearly non-existent. Digital competition is now a defining front in their systemic rivalry. The EU-China relationship is deeply shaped by the actions and ambitions of both the United States and Russia, two global powers whose influence casts long shadows over Europe's foreign policy decisions. US pressure has pushed Europe to restrict tech exports to China, as seen with Dutch firm ASML. Washington's concerns about advanced technology transfers have led to tighter controls, forcing European companies to navigate a complex web of regulations and diplomatic sensitivities. Europe is caught between its security alliance with Washington and deep economic ties to Beijing. The continent relies on the US for defense and intelligence, yet China remains a vital trading partner, especially in sectors like green energy, automotive, and technology. China's partnership with Russia, especially amid the Ukraine war, is a major EU concern. The growing closeness between Beijing and Moscow has raised alarms in European capitals, fueling fears of a new axis challenging Western interests. China's economic support for Russia undermines Western sanctions and deepens EU distrust. Trade between the two countries has surged, providing Moscow with a crucial economic lifeline and complicating the West's efforts to isolate Russia. The EU has warned China that support for Russia is a red line, even threatening sanctions on Chinese firms aiding Moscow. European leaders are increasingly vocal about the consequences, signaling a willingness to take tougher measures if Beijing crosses certain boundaries. Brussels seeks strategic autonomy, but US influence and Russian aggression limit its options. The EU's desire to chart its own course is constantly tested by external pressures and internal divisions among member states. Europe must balance de-risking from China with not alienating its top ally or provoking its main adversary. Every decision is a delicate act, requiring careful calculation to avoid unintended consequences. The geopolitical minefield is treacherous, with every move scrutinized by Washington, Moscow, and Beijing. The stakes are high, and missteps could have far-reaching consequences for Europe's security and prosperity. The EU's quest for an independent China policy is more challenging than ever, as it tries to assert its interests in a world where great power rivalry is intensifying and the margin for error is shrinking. China's divide-and-conquer strategy exploits Europe's internal divisions. While Brussels pushes for unity, member states' interests often clash. Germany urges caution, France demands protection, Hungary courts Chinese investment, Beijing cultivates bilateral ties, offering incentives like visa-free travel or trade deals to individual countries. These overtures undermine EU solidarity, making a unified China policy elusive. The EV tariff debate exposed how national interests can override collective strategy. As long as Beijing can peel off member states, Europe's leverage is weakened. The EU's greatest challenge is forging and enforcing a common approach. Without unity, its China policy risks being ineffective and inconsistent. Despite rivalry, EU-China cooperation endures in key areas. Climate change is paramount. China is the top emitter, the EU a leader in green tech. Both remain committed to the Paris Agreement, with ongoing collaboration on emissions trading and climate policy. AI regulation is another area for dialogue, as both sides seek global rules to prevent misuse of advanced technologies. These partnerships are fragile and transactional, overshadowed by strategic competition. Diplomatic gestures, lifting sanctions, visa waivers, offer goodwill but don't resolve core disputes. Cooperation survives, but only where interests align and stakes are global. The relationship is pragmatic, not trusting. As 2025 ends, the EU and China face a crossroads. Can de-risking prevent full decoupling? European leaders want to avoid a rupture, but trade disputes and security concerns are driving them apart. The EU's regulatory fortress clashes with China's state-led capitalism, fueling structural conflict. Geopolitics, China's Russia ties, assertiveness in Asia, force the EU to prioritize security over economics. The future hinges on EU unity, US influence, and China's willingness to moderate its actions. Selective decoupling in tech and critical sectors is likely, with contentious trade continuing elsewhere. The era of trust is over. Friction and rivalry are the new normal. Both sides are circling warily, preparing for a long struggle for influence. The path ahead is uncertain, and the stakes could not be higher.